Hello and welcome. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you guys every single rod and reel that I own. The full 2023 rod and reel arsenal video is here. We've put this off for long enough. It took me a while to get this done, but I hope you guys enjoy it. Every rod and reel that I own, at least every rod and reel that I own that I'm currently using, the full 2023 rod and reel arsenal video is here. I had asked in a previous video if anyone would be interested in seeing my full 2023 rod and reel lineup, and a lot of you guys said yes. So we're gonna go ahead and knock that out. Now I'm gonna try to keep things rolling. I got a lot of combos here. A couple things I wanna mention right off rip before we start looking at the first setups. First of all, what you're about to see is in excess. This is what happens when your life practically totally revolves around fishing, okay? This is not necessary. This is getting the glimpse into the mind of a madman, okay? This is overkill. But I'm from Texas, and where I come from, overkill is underkill. So I got a lot of rod and reels, guys. This is by far not required to be successful at bass angling or any type of fishing. So I want to get that out of the way first and foremost. I'm very blessed to have all of this gear. I've worked really hard to get here. It's taken me years to accumulate this much. While having an independent rod and reel for each specific technique that you're trying to fish is not necessary, it is nice. It is a luxury. It is very nice, and it saves a lot of time when you're out there on the water to just be able to put one rod down and pick up another one and be ready to go with a totally different bait and a totally different technique. That being said, it's not required. It's very easy to cut a piece of fishing line and tie on a new bait. So I want that to just be part of the message here at the beginning. This is total overkill. Worked really hard to get all these combos. Taken me a long time to build up this collection. So yeah, this is not necessary. This is, you know, what happens when you go crazy. When you go a little crazy and your whole freaking world gets swallowed up by this bass fishing thing. Watch all the way to the end, because at the end of this video, I'm gonna show you a top secret, never before seen on this channel ever, not even in the background. You guys have never got a glimpse of this rod and reel. I'm gonna show you a very special rod and reel. The last one that we're gonna do in this video is super special. Stick around to the end. You're gonna wanna see this one at the very end, and there's a reason I'm saving it for last. So watch all the way to the end if you wanna see the secret setup, but I think that's about everything we need to touch on before we start looking at some gear. So let me grab the first few rods and reels, and we'll jump right off into this, and we'll try to just keep it rolling pretty quick from here on out. I'm gonna bang this out because there's a lot of stuff to look at. We have so much time and very little to do. Wait, strike that, reverse it. Let's begin. First up, I'm gonna start off with the newest addition to my rod and reel arsenal. I've got two setups right here. These are the ones that I probably use the least, if I'm being honest. This is my two lone spinning setups. Both of the reels on these setups, sub $100 reels. These are not expensive combos. This is the Heater Series 7-foot medium spinning rod, paired up with the Shimano Sahara C3000. I think this reel's like 70 or 80 bucks, something like that. And then you got the newest addition to the Heater Series lineup, the Heater Series spinning rod. Available now, you guys check them out. This is my first spinning setup right here. The Shimano Sahara C3000 on the Heater Series spinning rod, and I got the drop shot on here. So this is, I think 10-pound braid to an 8-pound fluorocarbon leader, and that's what I'm coming with on that first setup right there. The next Finesse setup, I got a little single swimmer tied on right now, a little 2.7 Divine. And this is another one of the 7-foot medium Heater Series spinning rods that I just recently obtained. The reel on this one is the Shimano Sedona. That's a 2500, same setup on the line, 10-pound braid to 8-pound fluorocarbon leader. And those are my two Finesse setups. You know, that really kind of gets the Finesse stuff out of the way. Everything else you're gonna see in this video, it's about to be the power hour. Let's keep things rolling here. I'm gonna grab the next few setups and we're gonna keep this pushing. We're gonna sort of roll light to heavy. Okay, next rod in the lineup, my 6-foot 9-inch medium moderate setups. I got 4 of them here in front of me. This is my favorite of the Heater Series rods. It's the one I use the most, and I've heard a lot of really good things about this rod from you guys out there as well. A lot of you really like to fish this rod. This is my fluke rod, my flush rod, my Finesse square bill rod, my walking bait rod, and that is practically what I've got going on here in front of me. So this one first right here, I've got this one mounted up with a Shimano SLX MGL 70, and 6.3 to 1 is the gear ratio on that. I happen to have a fluke tied on right now, but I will throw square bills on this setup a lot of the time, hence the 6 to 1. Although I do have an abundance of setups, I do still use these combos for more than one thing. So I happen to have a fluke tied on here right now, but really square bills is where this particular setup shines. 15-pound fluorocarbon line, SLX, MGL 70, really good at casting the lighter baits, hence the Finesse square bills or the fluke. 6.3 to 1 on the gear ratio. That's the fluke and the square bill setup. Speaking of square bills, I will not hesitate to turn and burn with a 7 to 1, and that's what this is a SLX DC 150 HG 7.2 to 1, 15-pound fluorocarbon again, and as you can see, I've got a little curved Finesse square bill tied on right there in 4K shad. That's my other square bill setup right there. 6.9 medium moderate, 7 to 1 Finesse square bill. The 6.9 is dialed for that. But this one right here, I only use it for one thing and one thing only. This is my weightless flush 5.2 setup. The Flush 5.2 from 6th Sense Fishing. It's been my favorite soft plastic jerkbait for a while. Ever since they came out with it, I love it, and I always have this on deck ready to throw it. I don't have one hooked up right here at the moment, but it's always ready to get a flush rigged up and go to throwing. This one has got a lot of wear and tear on it, and I really love this setup. A lot of fish catches on this one. A lot of good mojo. For the reel on this one, I have the Shimano Corrado 70 MGL. This is a 7.4 to 1 gear ratio. I like to fish my soft plastic jerkbaits a little bit faster. 7 to 1 is my preference. Like I said, over here on this 6 to 1, should really be a square bill, but I got a fluke on there right now just as a backup. Last but not least, out of the 6.9 medium moderate lineup, all four of these, same rods, different reels. This is my topwater walking bait setup. My catwalk, my dogma, anything that is like a 115 millimeter or below topwater walking style bait, this is the rod that I'm gonna use for it. Shimano Corrado DC 150 HG 7.4 to 1, 50-pound braid. That's a catwalk right there, bone color, and that's my topwater walking bait rod. You guys, if you have trouble with walking baits, if maybe the setup that you're currently using isn't walking properly, if you're having trouble getting that catwalk or that dogma to go back and forth reliably, I highly encourage you to check out a rod like the 6.9 medium moderate heater series, or just something in that range, a little bit shorter, a little bit lighter. I promise you it will help you. You'll be able to walk the dog, as they say, or the cat in this case, for longer periods of time, no fatigue. The 6.9 absolutely dialed for the weightless jerk baits, the Finesse square bills, the topwater walking baits, blade baits, and I'm sure there's a bunch of other stuff we could use these setups for, but those are the three or four primary techniques that I like to use them for. All right, next up, let's talk chatterbaits, bigger square bills, Finesse jigs, smaller Texas rigs. These are gonna be my preferred setups. Mainly this is the chatterbait heater. You guys that have been watching my channel for any amount of time, you may have heard me talk about this rod in the past. It's the heater series. Pause, break, interruption. First of all, you guys are gonna see a lot of heater series rods in this video, okay? Obviously, you know, the heater series is my own signature line of fishing rods that we created with 6th Sense. So it's the rods that I personally trust and use every single day. I use them the most. You are gonna see some one-offs, some outliers, some different non-heater series rods and setups in this video, but the majority are gonna be heater series. I'm giving you guys the breakdowns on the links, the powers, the actions. You guys, it doesn't have to be a heater series. I'm just sort of giving you the information. You can find a comparable rod that will do the same thing. I recommend the heater series. If you guys haven't checked them out, check them out on 6thsensefishing.com and use my code JR10 for 10% off every rod you order. But I just, you know, obviously there's gonna be a lot of heater series here, but the information is what's important. You know, the links, the powers, the line, the gear ratios, stuff like that. That's what we're trying to focus on here. So yes, you're gonna see a lot of heater series. That doesn't matter. The info's still good. These are the types of gear that I like to use for specific, anyway, it's my rod and reel arsenal breakdown video, okay? This is my stuff, it's all I got. A lot of it's gonna be heater series. There's the disclaimer. Use your favorite rod. These are the links and powers that I like to fish with. So the 7.2 medium heavy mod fast heater series chatterbait rod. The chatterbait heater, the bladed jig banger. You guys have heard me talk about it plenty. As you can see, I actually have a jackhammer tied onto this one right now. with a paddle tail swim bait on the back of it. Uh-oh, look out. It's gonna ruin the action, the vibration on that bladed jig for sure. 7.2 medium heavy mod fast. A little bit more moderate, slower action. I'm gonna load up a little bit more into the blank, which is great for moving baits, guys. Moving baits, a little bit more moderate action is what I prefer. You're gonna see a lot of that in this video. There's gonna be a lot of moderate going on, that 6.9 medium moderate. You're gonna see a trend there. There's gonna be a pattern. As we go through here, you'll notice that I like the moving baits. I like the moderate action stuff. That's why we designed the heater series like we did, okay? So 7.2 medium heavy mod fast chatterbait heater, throwing that on a Shimano Corrado 200, 6.2 to 1. That's my favorite chatterbait reel, an old Corrado K. The 200, 6.2 to 1, 17-pound fluorocarbon. This is my main chatterbait rig right here. I love this rod for throwing a chatterbait. Up to 3/4 of an ounce. You know, anything half ounce and below, this rod's gonna do great for. Anything like half ounce and above, I'm gonna bump that up to the next rod we're gonna talk about here in just a second. But I have 2 of these 7.2 medium heavy mod fasts geared up right now. As you can see, this reel right here got like shad and baitfish spit up onto it by another fish that I'd caught, and it's still just chilling on there, dried. It baked on in the sun. But anyways, got this one set up for the larger square bills. This is a Crush 100, little bluegill color square bill from 6 cents. A little bit bigger profile than the Crush 50. Oh, speaking of the Crush 50, I also quickly want to mention that if you guys are looking for a good rod to throw, the Crush 50X from 6 Cents Fishing, any little 1.5 size square bill, the 6.9 medium moderate is dialed. That's Chester Cheeto, and that's my preferred setup for throwing that bait right there. Both the Curve Finesse and the Crush 50, I'm throwing them on the 6.9. So chatterbaits, bladed jigs, larger profile square bills. I'll also throw Finesse jigs on this setup. I really like it for the Finesse jigs. Just any lighter jig seems to work really well on the 7.2. Also, spinner baits. If you guys that like throwing the blades, 7.2 medium heavy mod fast. These are also my spinnerbait setups. Both of them with Corrado 200s on there. I don't know if I mentioned that or not, in 6.2 to 1 gear ratio. So 6 to 1s on the bladed jigs, the bigger square bills, spinnerbaits. 6 to 1 is good for most moving baits. You know, swim jig, square bill, chatterbait, spinnerbait, 6 to 1. But I am a fan of burning certain baits, and I will fish a lot of that stuff on a 7 to 1. But anyways, 6 to 1 is the sweet spot for most of these moving baits. In the 7.2 medium heavy mod fast heater series, or any 7.2 with a more moderate action, and a Corrado 200 is all you need to throw baits, like I just mentioned. But let's keep rolling. We're gonna bump it up just a little bit and grab the next few rods in my rod and reel arsenal. This is the other one that I use the most out of everything. This one and the 6.9, I'd say, are my two most picked up pieces of gear. This is my sweet spot. This is where most of my work is done right here. This one right here, I'm gonna set off to the side. This is my favorite. This is my favorite one. My favorite combo out of everything. We'll talk about that one here in just a second. But these are my 7.4s. So all of these right here are gonna be 7.4 medium heavy mod fast, the heater series swim jig rod, but it's good for way more than just swim jigs, as you guys are gonna see right here. So this one right here I actually have set up with a little small profile Texas rig, the Krub tube. I like throwing the Krub on the 7.4. The 7.2 is also a really good rod, like I said, for smaller profile Finesse jigs and Texas rigs. The 7.2 is great, but for whatever reason, I've landed on the 7.4 medium heavy mod fast for the little Krub tube. Texas rig, got it pegged, 1/4 ounce bullet weight, green pumpkin, 3/0 EWG hook. This is another one of the Shimano Corrado 70 MGLs, 7.4 on the reel, and that's 17 pound, 15 or 17 pound fluorocarbon. When it comes to line, I'm running 15, 17, and 20. Those are my 3 main ones. That feels like 17 to me. Next up, we got another 7.4 medium heavy mod fast. Like I said, mod fast, moderate fast action for the moving baits. I just showed you a Texas rig. Yes, I'm gonna contradict myself in this video probably. That's okay. I don't even know what I'm talking about. This is a 7.4 medium heavy mod fast with a freaking wake bait on the top of it. This is the Movement 80 wake. Got this one matched up with another Corrado 70. That may be by accident. I don't know. That could be random. Honestly, I love the Corrado 70s, man. If you guys haven't checked out these reels, the MGL Corrado 70, it can do a lot. I mean, you don't need 200 size spool for, let's be honest, most things, especially if it's a moving bait. So the 70 size spool, great for me. I love the Corrado 70s. 7.4 medium heavy mod fast. Got the wake bait on there right now, but I also really love throwing the Crush Flat 75X and the Flat Finesse F4, both on the 7.4. Treble hook baits, larger profile square bills, Texas rigs, or even a little bit heavier shaky head like I have tied onto this one right here. This is another 7.4 medium heavy mod fast. This one has that SLX MGL 70 on it. 7.2 to 1 is the gear ratio on that one. Again, 17-pound fluorocarbon, little shaky head with the new Busa shaky worm on there. I'll be honest with you, I just picked this one up and tied it on and haven't fished with it yet. So I needed something in the medium heavy range for the shaky head, and I felt like the 7.4 might be dialed for it, but we'll find out. A lot of this stuff, it really just comes down to experimentation and finding out what you do or do not like. The 7.4 medium heavy mod fast is one of my do-it-all rods. Like I said, I'll throw moving baits on this thing, but I will not hesitate to throw a jig or a Texas rig or even a heavier shaky head on it. This one right here, this is my favorite setup. This is the one that when I pick this one up, it feels the best. It's my most expensive combo, or one of them, and I feel spoiled just to have this one, basically because of the reel. Another 7.4 medium heavy mod fast heater series. This is my swim jig setup. As you can see, I have a Divine swim jig tied on with the bongo on the back of it right there. Anything 3/8 and above, I'm gonna be using this rod. And this is my most expensive reel that I own, the Shimano Metanium 7.4 to 1. That's like the 2020 or the 2021, one of the newer ones. Not the old. It's not the old Metanium. It's the new Metanium. Has the SVS Infinity. This thing is freaking butter. This is butter. This is probably the nicest setup. Every time I pick this one up, it just feels really good. Really nice, high quality reel right here on, if I may say so myself, a really high quality rod. 7.4 medium heavy mod fast heater series rod. The rod that I use the most outside of that 6.9. This one and the 6.9 are the two that I pick up the absolute most. And I have used this one right here for a long time and for a lot of things. Like, I beat on this one. And we're gonna look at another one here in a minute that I beat on even harder. But those are my 4 primary 7.4 medium heavy. If I could only pick one out of the heater series, and I was gonna do everything with it, if I was gonna throw moving baits and I was gonna do like some jigging and Texas rigging and some bottom fishing, this is the rod that I recommend right here. 7.4 medium heavy mod fast. Get you a 7 to 1 reel, 17-pound fluorocarbon. You're good to go. You're good to go. You can throw moving baits, you can throw slow fishing baits, bottom contact baits. This will get it done. It's sensitive enough to where you can feel bites. You're fishing on the bottom, but man, where it really shines is when you start throwing stuff like a swim jig that's moving and you want a little bit more of a moderate action, a little bit more give into the midsection of that blank. The moderate action is just great for throwing the moving baits, especially if they have treble hooks. And I love the way they feel, I love the way they load up and the way they cast, and that's why I made that rod a 7.4 medium heavy mod fast. There's so many 7-foot medium heavy fast, 7.3 medium heavy fast. You can find rods like that everywhere. In every fishing store you go to, they got tons of 7-foot something medium heavy fast. So I wanted the heater series to be a little bit different, a little more dialed for the moving baits, but still capable of throwing the bottom contact stuff with no issue. So there we go. 4 7.4 medium heavy mod fast heater series setups for a plethora of techniques. Everything from smaller Texas rigs and jigs to the moving baits. Let's keep it rolling. All right, let's take a little break from the heater series for a moment and let's talk about these two right here. So this is my other favorite rod that 6th Sense makes. This is the Sensory series. This is the 7.3 heavy fast Sensory. So fast action, a little more what you're used to seeing in practically every fishing department store across the country. Heavy fast, really easy to find those. But the Sensory series, I've been using these for a long time. As you can see, that foam is really broken in, but I like the full grip on the Sensory. That full foam grip just feels really nice. Great looking rod, really comfortable, beautiful looking components when it comes to the appearance. Been fishing the Sensory for years. Absolutely love it. I got this one set up for heavier Texas rig. That's like a 3/8 ounce bullet weight there with a worm hook, you know, fishing the Busa worm. Probably what I was doing on that. Any bottom contact Texas rig jig Love throwing the Sensory 7.3 heavy fast for that. This actually used to be my swim jig rod, but when I made the switch over to the 7.4 mod fast, fell in love with the heater series and never looked back. But on this other one right here, as you can see, I do have a swim jig tied onto it. This is the one that I like to throw the axle on. So this is a 7.3 heavy fast with a little bit bigger profile, a little bit heavier swim jig. 6/0 hook, bigger bait, bigger profile, so I want a little bit more backbone with faster action. Fishing the axle around a lot of vegetation, a lot of grass. That heavy, fast action will help you rip that bait out of the grass anytime you start running into cover. So for that reason, I really like throwing that axle swinging swim jig on the 7.3 heavy fast Sensory series. Let's talk about the reels really quick. That's a 7.2 to 1. If I'm throwing a swim jig, generally I'm throwing it on a 7 to 1. I don't know why, it's just what I prefer, and I just remind myself not to get to rolling too fast. Just a slow, steady retrieve. Seems to work great on the swim jigs, but practically every other moving bait, my preference tends to be a 6 to 1. This is an SLX DC reel, 7.2 to 1, 17-pound fluorocarbon. This right here is a reel that we haven't talked about yet. On this Sensory is the Corrado 150 HG. So this is the 150 size Corrado that they came out with a while back. Picked up a couple of them. It's got the MGL technology in it. They're nice. I'll be honest, not too big of an advancement or an upgrade from a 200. Still like my 200s. Still feel like they fish just fine compared to the 150s, but these are really nice reels. Picked up a couple of those. 7.4 to 1 for the bottom contact stuff on that reel. And that's my two Sensory series, 7.3 heavy fast. I do have some other rods that aren't heater series in my lineup, and I do use these often. Really like the full grip on the handle. That's one of my favorite things about them, and they just look awesome. Let's keep it rolling. Let's get a little heavier here. Let's talk 7.5 heavy fast. The heater series 7.5 heavy fast. So 7 foot 5 inch heavy power fast action rod. What would we use that for? Well, I'll tell you. First off, this is my frog rod. I love the 7.5 heavy fast for frogging. I got the Stanley top toad tied onto this one right now. Caught my first few fish on this bait not long ago. Had a lot of fun fishing it, but no matter what frog I'm throwing it on the 7.5 heavy fast heater series for the most part. Let me tell you why. You do not need a broomstick to go frogging. Maybe if you're fishing super heavy, strong, like tough to get fish through cover that you're gonna really have to drag some fish through some junk. But if you're just fishing like regular vegetation, lily pads, stuff like that, you don't need a super heavy broomstick. A heavy fast is my preference. It'll help you miss less fish, first of all. You're not gonna have to swing quite as hard as you would with like something like a 7.5 extra heavy, and I do have extra heavies over here in the corner. I've actually got a whole corner full of rods that I'm not currently using. We're not gonna talk about those today because we don't have enough time, but I have a bunch of spare rods, older rods, rods from back in the day over there in the corner that don't currently have a reel on them, so that in case I come across some sort of technique that I need something different for, I have that. I have plenty of options. This is just where we're set up right now. This is how I have everything set up right now, how I'm currently fishing everything. All of this is subject to change. So if you made it this far in the video and you're still listening to me ramble about fishing stuff, just keep in mind that this stuff changes all the time. I'll take this reel off and put it on a different rod and cut this bait off and tie on a different bait. And this is all subjective and constant rotation and adjustment. And that's just part of fishing. This is how everything's sitting right now. And we're breaking it down as of today. 7.5 heavy fast for the frogs, straight 50 or 65 pound braid. I recently upgraded this one to 65, re-spooled it because I broke off a fish on 50 pound braid up at Valley Lake, and that sucked. So upgraded to 65 for the frog, and the 7.5 heavy fast is dialed for throwing the frogs, but it's also great for heavier Texas rigs. Got a 1/2 ounce bullet weight there, the Busa worm, T-yard, Shimano SLX DC 7.2 to 1, Texas rig, just dragging that along the bottom. 7.5 heavy fast for when you're around bigger fish or when you need something a little bit beefier. Maybe you're fishing heavy cover. I throw the worm on the 7.4 and the 7.5. Always got a couple Texas rigs on deck. You saw that Krug tube on the 7.4 as well. Yeah, you know, you gotta have something to drag around. It's not my favorite way to fish. Love catching them like that though. When they're eating off the bottom, you best believe we're gonna have a dang fun time dragging worms around. But this right here is my other favorite technique. This right here is one of my favorite ways to fish. One of the most fun techniques that you can use to get a bass to eat something fake. And this is the top water whopper plopper setup right here. Got a Shimano Corrado 200, 7.2 to 1. Love the deeper spool on my plopper setup because I'm sailing this thing out there as far away from the boat as I can get it. That is straight 50-pound braid. That is a 110 millimeter whopper plopper right there. This is my plopper setup for the 110 millimeter whopper plopper. If I go bigger, I use a different setup. I'll show you that in a second. But for the 110s, the 7.5 heavy fast with the Corrado 200, 7.4 to 1, plipping and plopping, it's dialed. And those are my 3 7.5 heavy fasts that I use for frogging, heavy Texas rigs, and medium to big size whopper ploppers. All right, next up now, speaking of whopper ploppers, let's go a little heavier, okay? This is my 130 millimeter or above whopper plopper setup. This is my 7.7 heavy Team 6 rod, a little bit longer than the 7.5 heavy. And this is my larger whopper plopper setup. So 130 millimeter whopper ploppers like this one right here. That's a Sooner color. Love that color. Caught some massive fish. Caught one of the biggest bass of my life ever on this bait right here. Again, 65-pound braid, straight to a swivel that I have attached to the split ring on this whopper plopper. That's gonna keep that whopper plopper from twisting up on you and twisting your braid. Another Shimano Corrado 150 DC. This is a 8.5 to 1 on the ratio on this one. So really fast turning and burning. This is more like a frog rod, but I love throwing the big whopper ploppers on this setup right here. And I can just flip and plop all day with this. I can bomb this bait out a mile with this 7.7. Got it loaded up all the way with straight braid. And this is absolutely one of the most fun ways that you can fish. It's hard to beat a whopper plopper bite. When they come up and they hit that plipping and plopping. Speaking of plopping, I feel like little whopper plopper tip, these baits don't really come alive until you get up to this one. Until you get up to the 130. This is where they really start making the signature whopper plopper sound. And that 110 we looked at a moment ago, I love throwing that bait. I catch a ton of fish on that bait. But there's something about the sound difference where you can go from having like it sort of spritzes and plips a little bit when you're on the 110, the 75, or the 90. You bump up to the 130, it goes to straight plop, 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 plop it. Okay? So don't be afraid to throw that 130. I've caught everything from 2s to almost 10s on that right there. So 7.7. Heavy Team 6 Corrado 150 DC and an 8.5 to 1 straight braid and a big plopper. Doesn't get much more fun than that, but I have another 7.7 heavy fast action rod right here. This is the Sensory series. We talked about this series a minute ago in the 7.3 heavy. This is the 7.7 heavy. Got it set up for throwing a little bit bigger stuff. Also paired up with another Corrado DC. This one's a 7.4 to 1. I don't know if you guys can see, but I actually have this one laced up with a soft paddle tail swim bait in the new treble head from 6th Sense Fishing. Been experimenting with this for the bigger baits and the smaller baits. More on that to come, but yeah, got that set up right there on the 7.7 heavy fast. So whopper ploppers, this is like a medium profile swim bait, I would say. 6-inch, 5-inch, 6-inch swim bait. Love the 7.7s, man. And I wouldn't hesitate to use these for other techniques, heavier Texas rigs. The 7.7 heavy fast probably do a lot of stuff, but for me, it's throwing the whopper plopper where this one really shines. And then experimenting around a little bit with the 7.7 heavy fast with this soft swim bait setup in the treble head. But the Trace is another one of the baits that I really love for this setup right here. So the 7.7 heavy fast Sensory series dialed for the 6th Sense Trace. If you like throwing the smaller multi-joints, check out this rod right here. It's like a swim bait rod that you can throw a swim bait on. That's not a swim bait rod, but it's a swim bait rod. I guess. I don't know. It can be whatever you want it to be. I don't care. Throw a trout fly on it if you want to. It doesn't matter to me. No rules in fishing, and if there are rules, break them. But these are just what I use these combos for, and I don't even know what I'm talking about. So don't listen to me. This is just what I do. Do whatever you want. This is how I'm rolling, man. I'm just sharing with you guys my stuff, how I've got it set up right now. Subject to change, could be different tomorrow. Okay, let's talk about a couple more non-heater series rods. I said mostly everything you were gonna see was heater series, but I got, a good little handful of stuff that's non-heater series. This right here, sort of gonna bounce back to that first little set of rods that we looked at on the bait casters, the 6.9 medium moderate. This is a little alternate that I have that's really good for throwing sort of the same kind of baits, but I have this one set up right now with the Curve 55. That's a little medium diver, small profile, sort of like, rock crawler, wiggle wart type of crankbait right there. Medium diver, but it's really light. So this is a 7.2 medium fast Sensory Series rod. Again, full grip on the handle, really like that. 7.2, a little bit shorter, medium power. Perfect for small square bills like this. Got that paired up with another one of the SLX reels, but this is the SLX DC 70, 6.3 to 1. Really good for throwing those smaller, smaller profile baits like this, as well as that MGL 70 that we looked at earlier. There's a little one-off 7.2 medium fast Sensory Series. Used to throw this rod a lot more, honestly. This used to be one of my favorites. Before I got the 6.9 dialed in, I was throwing everything from the Curve Finesse, Crush 50, and the Curve 55 on the 7.2 medium Sensory. Next up, we'll bounce back a little bit into that topwater category that we were sort of messing with a minute ago with those whopper ploppers, and let's talk about this right here. So this one, this is my Vega rod. This is actually the rod that was designed for frogging, but like I said, I throw the frog for the most part, if not all the time, on that 7.5 heavy fast heater. But what I found that this particular rod right here, like I said, is a Vega rod, the Vega frog rod, built to frog. It says on the bottom there. I don't know if you guys can see that. It's upside down. It says built to frog. It's a 610 heavy fast. And what I found that this rod shines for me personally, and for you too, I guarantee you if you try it, is for the big stuff, the big walking baits. This is the Magnum Catwalk. That's a big topwater walking bait right there. Let's bust out a normal catwalk just to compare. There's the OG, the one that I throw on the 6.9, and there's the big cat, the Magnum. So you're gonna need something a little bit heavier than that 6.9 for this big beefed up walking bait right here. And this 610 heavy fast Vega rod is short enough but powerful enough to walk this bait effortlessly. Straight money for the larger topwater walking style baits, the 610 heavy fast. Got that paired up with another Shimano Corrado 70 HG 7.4 to 1, straight 50-pound braid. And that's my larger profile topwater walking bait setup for right now anyways. I will still throw frog on this, and to be honest with you, sometimes I take this reel off and I throw it on a different rod and use it for other topwater techniques that I might need straight braid for. For example, if I needed to throw like a smaller profile topwater popper, like a Pop R or a splashback, I'm gonna take this reel off of this rod, I'm gonna throw it on a 6.9, and I'm gonna tie on a popper. But if I need something for a larger profile topwater walking style bait that's a little bit heavier, that is gonna overpower that 6.9, I'm gonna bump up to this 610 Vega heavy fast. And really I have this set up because I was experimenting with the new catwalk. You know, I like throwing the OG catwalk, that's my preference, but I had to take the big cat out for a whirl as well. And so that is how this setup got created. I was experimenting with different rods and reels for the big cat, and I landed here. If you're looking for a setup for, you know, the big Magnum style walking baits, check out that 610 Vega. Another one-off non-heater series rod, but it's a really nice rod. This one right here is the 7.4 heavy fast USA Custom Series, the Mag Heavy from 6 Cents. 7 foot 4 inch Mag Heavy, custom made by hand in the USA with all premium components top to bottom, premium blank, premium reel seat. Everything on this rod is top tier. It's an expensive rod. This is one of my more costly setups. I absolutely love it for heavier jigs, heavy Texas rigs. When I'm bed fishing, I'm using this rod a lot. I have it rigged up a straight 20, or it may even be 25-pound fluorocarbon, and I feel a little nick right there. I need to retie. But as you can see right here, I got a bull shad tied onto this setup. It's not quite as long as I would prefer for a bait like this, the bull shad, but this 7.4 Mag Heavy, it actually does really well on a smaller multi-jointed swim bait like this. I love throwing the multi-joints. The bull shad is another one of my favorites. This is the smaller, it's the 5 or 6 inch right there. It's 6 inch bull shad. And yeah, the 7.4 Mag Heavy. Wanted to really, this is another one that I'm sort of playing around with, experimenting, seeing how good it does for these baits right here. But heavier jigs, heavy Texas rigs, bed fishing, the sweep, 7.4 Mag Heavy. That's my setup right there, dude. That's another Shimano Corrado DC, by the way. and that's an 8.5 to 1. Turning and burning with that bull shad, I guess is what I was trying to do. Either way, the 8.5 to 1's really, those reels should be used for like topwater, frogging, or jigging, Texas rigging, pitching and flipping, stuff like that. 8.5 is fast. So if you have an 8 to 1, you really need to slow down. 7 or 6 is what I'm using for the most part. For whatever reason, I got an 8.5 on here right now, probably because I was doing what I said and was bed fishing with it, jig fishing, stuff like that. But either way, we'll have to slow way down with that bull shad. Still playing around with it. I'll let you know how it goes. But there's 3 other outliers that are non-heater series setups that I have right now with me out there on the boat. Let's keep it rolling. Man, I know this video is getting long. If you're still here, you're still watching, you appreciate me going through all these rods with you guys, click the thumbs up button. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already. All right, next up, let's talk cranking. So first up out of these 3 is gonna be another heater series rod. This is the 7.5 medium moderate. The heater series, sort of the weird one. This is like the stepchild, you know what I mean? 7.5, a little bit longer, but it's only a medium. What would you use that for? Well, I'll tell you. This is my lipless crankbait and my smaller profile medium diver crankbait that's not a curve 55 setup, if that makes sense. So baits like the C6 that I have tied on right here. Perfect for the 7.5 medium heater. Got that paired up with another one of those Corrado 150 MGLs, 7.4 to 1 on the gear ratio. A lot of times when I'm cranking, I'm turning and burning, getting it down there as fast as I can, as deep as I can, and then blasting it by their face, trying to get them to react. So I will not hesitate to fish crankbaits on a 7 to 1. Like I said, 6 to 1 is optimum, ideal for just general moving baits all around, but there's something about burning a crankbait as fast as you can and having a fish just come unglued on it. It's awesome. So there's the 7.5 medium for the smaller profile mid divers like the C6. I'm gonna bump it up. This one right here is probably my nicest cranking setup that I own. This is another expensive reel. Feel really spoiled to own this. I don't have many reels like this in this price range. Had to save up for this one. This is a Shimano Bantam. 7.1 to 1 is the gear ratio, and I freaking love this reel. It is so smooth, so buttery, and you can absolutely bomb a crankbait out there with this thing. I got a C10 tied onto this setup. This rod is the 711 medium heavy mod fast Cloud 9 cranker Lux series rod from 6th Sense Fishing. My favorite crankbait rod. Anything from the C10 to the C15, C20. I mean, you can throw the deep divers on this thing. It is so much fun. Designed for cranking, graphite. I absolutely love it. I've tried the composite cranking rods in the past. I have used the glass rods, and for me, I just tend to prefer the graphite for whatever reason. So absolutely love the 711 Cloud 9 cranker paired up with that Shimano Bantam. It doesn't get much better than that right there. Such a smooth setup. Haven't fished with this much, haven't had many opportunities to throw this, only here and there, but the times that I have fished with it, I've just fallen in love with it. I absolutely love this combo. But if we're gonna go super deep, we're gonna throw like a big crank, like this right here. I think this is a C20. This is the 8-foot Lux. So 8-foot heavy, mod fast. Got that paired up with an SLX DC and 6.3 to 1 when I'm throwing the really big deep diving cranks. I tend to bump down to a 6 to 1. That's my deep diving crank setup. But it's also a really good swim bait rod. 8-foot heavy, mod fast. Really like throwing swim baits on this. I just have to switch up the reel because I believe that's 15 or even 12 pound fluorocarbon. But right now, those are my 3 medium to deep diving crank setups. These right here can bounce back and forth with a little reel change or a line change between crankbait rods and big swim bait rods, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a second. But first I want to talk about 2 others that we need to talk about, because we need to talk about them. These are not only like sentimental value, but they're sort of like historic in a way, at least for me personally. These are the 2 remaining, the last of the Mohicans heater series prototype rods. These are the rods that we used to test the blanks and the build before we finalized the visual portion, you know, the aesthetics. This was like, can we actually fish with this? Is the rod gonna work for what we want it for? So these are the ones that I tested out before we actually came out with the full line. And as you can see, it has like the old heater artwork with the blue flames and the scratched in heater. Still had the blue, anodized blue rings on the handles. But yeah, we did away with this design and it turned into what you see in the heater series now. But these rods are really special to me. I still fish them. I've had them for literally years now and they're still going strong. This one is a 7.4 medium heavy mod fast, the very first heater series swim jig rod. As you can see, I've got a really beautiful, realistic bluegill swim jig tied onto this setup right now. Always got a couple swim jigs on deck. 6.2 to 1 gear ratio on this one, so a little bit slower. That's a Corrado 200 right there. Love me some Corrado 200. I'll throw those flat-sided square bills on this setup as well, so that 6 to 1 is perfect for that. Also, it doesn't hurt to throw a 6 to 1 with a swim jig, help you slow down. I'll throw heavier chatterbaits on this setup, but really this is one that I always have around. It reminds me, you know, where we started with the heater series, how far we've come, what you can accomplish with hard work and dedication and grind. And this right here is a reminder, like, I'm a nobody and I have these freaking heater series rods. Like, I'm just a dude. And I feel really blessed to have the heater series. And this right here is a reminder of how far we've come. The prototype heater series, here's another one. The other prototype heater, 7.5 heavy fast. And as you can see, I actually have a trace tied onto this one. You can throw these smaller multi-joints on these smaller rods. This is perfectly fine. You don't need a big, massive, heavy, dedicated swim bait setup like I have over here that we're about to take a look at and talk about here in just a second. You can get away with these multi-joints up to like 2 ounces, like a 2-ounce multi-joint on these smaller rods. I really enjoyed throwing this bait on everything from the 7.3 heavy fast sensory that we looked at. I'll throw it on the 7.5 heavy fast. I'll throw it on the 7.7, and I'll even throw it on the Swimbaits special, which we'll talk about here in a second. But the 7.5 heavy fast prototype heater, got it paired up with my only Daiwa. This is the Daiwa CT, Tatula CT 6.3 to 1. It's my only Daiwa reel that I own, but I got that paired up right there with the custom painted trace, little garage paint right there on the trace. This one locked in. Love this rod. I'll be honest, this one I'm still experimenting with it. Wanted to try the trace on the CT on the 7.5 and see how it went. So far so good, but I'll keep you guys posted. All right, swim bait rods, the big stuff, the big bait gear. Let's talk about it, but really quickly, if you're still watching this video, click that thumbs up button, drop me a comment, and subscribe to the channel if you're not already. We're about to hit 78,000, but I can't do it without you. Let's talk big bait setups. The big boys, the big dogs, the heavy stuff, the stuff I know you all want to see. Swim bait gear. Let's talk about it. All right, the big bait stuff. Let's start with this one. We talked about this rod a minute ago. This is the 711 medium heavy mod fast Cloud 9 cranker, designed for crankbaits. But I will not hesitate to use this bad boy to throw a Chad Shad. The 711 is a great choppier glide bait rod. And anytime you're trying to chop, move a little quicker like you do with the Chad Shad. Like the 711 is long enough, loads up enough to be a good swim bait rod for fishing these treble hook baits. But it's also light and short enough to where you can chop that Chad Shad around. I actually got this with a 6.3 to 1, and I think I mixed these rods up when I tied these baits on, because it should be a crankbait tied onto the 6 to 1, and then the Chad Shad should be on a 7 to 1. I like throwing the Chad on a 7 to 1. It helps get me a little bit better action out of the bait without having to use the rod tip so much. But either way, like I said, it's easy to cut off a bait and tie on a new one, so we'll get that straightened out. But the 711 medium heavy mod Cloud 9 cranker, dialed for the Chad Shad. That's an SLX DC. Like I said, I'd be throwing this bait on like a 7 to 1 with 20-pound fluorocarbon. But this 6.3 right here, I believe, is set up for cranking with something like 15 to 12 on it. So I need to make a little adjustment there, but we won't worry about that right now. Mistakes were made. We'll get it ironed out, get these baits swapped over onto the right setups. But the 711 medium heavy mod Cloud 9 cranker with a SLX DC and 7 to 1. Perfect for the Chad Shad. That's my Chad Shad setup. Now, we looked at a lot of heater series rods, and we even talked about a heater series spinning rod. You guys asked for the longest time when we were gonna have a rod that would cover the finesse game, and now we have it. And I'm sure you're asking yourself the question, but do you have anything that can cover the swim bait end of the spectrum? And the answer to that is absolutely yes, we do. not too long ago, we came out with the 7/8 extra heavy fast swim bait special. As you can see, I've got another soft plastic swim bait rigged up over here, but I've got it rigged up on an Owner Beast screw lock hook, single hook. This 7/8 extra heavy fast swim bait special pairs up nicely with the big single hook swim baits. Got that paired up with another Corrado 200, 7.4 to 1, 20-pound fluorocarbon. It's another awesome swim bait setup, the 7/8 extra heavy fast swim bait special heater. And it's also my favorite rod lately to throw this trace with. This is the setup right here that I was throwing the trace on up at Valley Lake Ranch. This is actually a Scorpion DC in a 7 to 1 gear ratio, I believe. Scorpion 100 DC, yeah. And then 20-pound fluoro, and that's that bone fast sink trace. Same one that I caught all those fish on at Valley Lake in one of our recent videos. Love that setup for throwing the trace. But wait, there's more. I have a couple other setups right here, and these are a couple more of those USA Custom Series. These are the USA Custom Series 6 Sense swim bait rods. So this is the multi-purpose heavy. It's a 711 heavy, moderate fast, I believe. As you can see, long full grip on these swim bait rods. Again, handmade, 100% USA custom. This is a Shimano Tranx 200, which I really love for deep cranking or throwing the heavier swim baits. 6.2 to 1 on the gear ratio. This is probably 20-pound fluorocarbon if I had to guess. It's been a minute since I restrung this one. And that is a nice bluegill Doobie C3. And that setup right there is perfect for throwing that little crank down, but this could do a lot. Really, this is like, if you're just gonna have one swim bait rod, this is the one right here. You could do a lot with that. I'm not even gonna go down the list. Last but not least, let's talk about the Mag Glide. The USA Custom Series Mag Glide 711 Extra Heavy. And this is my big bait rod. Big baits like the Draw, or baits like the Bull Shad Glide, or the legendary Hinkle Shad. I'm gonna be using this one right here. 711 Extra Heavy. This is a Corrado 300 reel. 6.6 to 1 is the gear ratio, and that's 25-pound fluorocarbon. Yeah, 25-pound Abrazex fluorocarbon, and that's my big bait setup. Anytime I'm gonna go, above 2 ounces, 4 ounces and above, it's gonna be this one right here. Any of my other swim baits in that small to medium range, like the C3, I'm gonna be using this one, the multi-purpose heavy. But the Mag Glide, this rod right here, this setup right here with the big reel, 300 size reel, bigger. This is bigger, beefed up. This is dedicated swim bait, big bait, glide bait gear right here. That's my big bait rod for when we want to throw the heavy stuff. Awesome. I can't believe we made it through that many rods. We still have more to look at. A super secret, very special setup that I've never shown on camera, but I'm about to right now. All right, now I've just shown you a bunch of really nice rods, really nice setups. I feel extremely blessed to have all that. Is it necessary? Absolutely not. Is it nice? Yes. When practically everything in your life, from work to pleasure and fun and everything in between revolves around fishing, this is sort of like where you can end up. You know what I mean? You dedicate years, you dedicate a whole bunch of hard work, good chunk of money. You can end up with 30 different rods and reels for all different types of techniques. Is it nice? Yes. Is it necessary? No. This next setup that I'm going to show you right here is really special. This one is special. This setup right here is not a heater series rod. It's not a Shimano reel. This is actually a Pinnacle Ultra Balance combo. This is the combo that I fished with for the longest time when I first started really getting into bass fishing. We're talking 12 plus years ago, before I really started just focusing on largemouth bass. Been fishing my whole life for all different types of fish, including bass, but I really started getting more serious about bass fishing techniques around 10 to 12 years ago, and I started wanting to have like dedicated bass gear, bait caster. And at the time, this was the setup that I purchased to use, and I use this for everything. This was my one combo. This is a Pinnacle 6.2 to 1 2-bearing system. It's got 2 bearings in there, guys. This is a budget-friendly, cheap combo that I got from Walmart back in the day. 6 foot 6 inch medium graphite composite rod. It's real noodly when you start shaking it around. I like it. Feels really good, man. Maybe that's where some of that love for the moderate action rods came in. Really cheap, not a smooth reel, not a great casting reel, but this is the one combo that I used for everything, every technique, whether it was topwater, Texas rig, buzzbait, popper, swim jig, chatterbait, it did not matter. This was the rod that I had and the rod that I used and the rod that I loved using. I put this in my trunk and I drove around and I hit ponds with this rod. Nothing but a dang popper or a spinnerbait or I don't even know what tied on for the longest time. Well before I ever had a nice combo, well before I ever owned my first Shimano reel, and I loved every minute of it. My reason for showing you this rod right here at the end of this video is to say that, you know, I'll never forget where I came from. I showed you guys a lot of really nice gear, and like I talked about, it took me a lot of hard work, hard-earned money, time, dedication to obtain and acquire and collect all of those combos. They're not necessary, they're nice, I'm blessed, it's a luxury, but you can get it done with the 2-bearing Pinnacle Ultra Balance from Walmart. You do not need a bunch of fancy gear to fish. You do not need a bunch of fancy gear to love fishing. And that is the message that I want to leave with you guys here today, is that all that stuff is really nice and it is something to work towards. You know, I hope that seeing all those nice combos, if you love fishing and fishing is what you want to do, well, I hope this in some way inspires you to, you know, work hard, keep grinding, keep building your arsenal, and one day you'll have a ton of more setups than you know what to do with. Honestly, this is overkill. It's more than I know what to do with at times. I love having all my rods and my reels, and I put them to work, but it's overkill. It's not necessary. It's not required. And if you don't have a ton of setups, you should be just as happy with something like this, because I was. When I was using this rod right here, do you think I was thinking, oh, I wish I had this? No, I was just happy that I was going fishing. I was just happy to be loading this into the trunk of my Mustang with my one little Plano hard plastic tackle box, going down just trying to get a bite somewhere. So that's the message I want to leave you with at the end of the video. Yes, it's really cool to have all these combos. I love my Heater Series rods and my Shimanos. Very blessed. I have some of the best gear imaginable, some of the best gear on the planet, and blessed to use it. But it's not necessary, it's not required. And while it is cool and it is fun, you can get it done with the old 2-bearing Pinnacle Ultra Balance combo from Walmart. I don't even know how much that cost, but it couldn't have been much because I didn't have much money back in the day. I had to scrape together the pennies, just like a lot of people do. And I'm no different than any of you. All I did was sit down. I had a goal, I had a vision, I had a dream. I chased it. I refused to quit. And now we're here. So that's it, man. I hope you guys enjoyed the rod and reel arsenal breakdown. Subject to change. These things are fluid. I take reels off of rods, put them on other rods, try different combos, and experiment with baits and setups all the time. So I'm sure the next time you guys see one of these rod and reel arsenal videos from me, everything will be totally different. But I hope this gave you a glimpse into the equipment that I use to throw, the baits that I like to throw, and give you guys a little bit of idea of what gear I use for what techniques. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you found some value in the video. Remember about the old Pinnacle there. I'll never get rid of this. This stays. I might even clean this off, lace it up, and go fish with it, man, just to see if it still runs. But anyways, man, this video is long enough. I appreciate you all for taking time out of your day to watch this video, but that's about all I got for you today. That about does it. That about wraps her on up. So I'm gonna say goodbye for now, and I'll see you on the next one. Plop, 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 plop it.